Ethel, God bless you. You are so amazing, and to get this award from you, we love Ethel Kennedy. Thank you. And to the entire Kennedy family, to Carrie, thank you for, I feel a little bit like one of the guests on Oprah who said, you're not going to get me to cry. And, I leaned over to Ethel after those nice talks, and particularly my sons at the end, and I just said, I'm done. That was really so nice. Thank you so much. And to Orrin Kramer, the co-chair of this event, to my daughter Corinna, my son Albert, thank you, son. To Bobby Kennedy, thank you. I am your biggest fan. I appreciate your great work on the environment and your Riverkeepers organization, which does such a fantastic job. And to my longtime friend, Reed Hunt, I'm glad what happened in high school stayed in high school. And to my dear friend and colleague of so many years, Leon Firth, who is a very wise man indeed. And to all of the distinguished guests this evening, it is a tremendous honor for me to receive this award in the same ceremony when you have honored Dennis Matheson. And I congratulate Dennis again and his wife Gail and the work that you and your colleagues do. The Ripple of Hope speech was only one of many great speeches by Robert F. Kennedy, of course, but it is one that is part of the centerpiece of this evening and this ceremony. And what he really said that touched the hearts of his listeners then and all who have read it since is that even the most massively defended forms of injustice can be defeated as a consequence of even single acts of courageous expression and action. Almost 50 years have gone by since Robert F. Kennedy first spoke those words, and of course our world is still full of injustice. Man against man, men against women, straights against gays, the 1% against the 99%, creed against creed, nation against nation, and the human species against the ecological integrity of the planet we call home. And yet, that same half-century has been marked by countless demonstrations of the essential, hopeful, and inspiring truth that RFK expressed with such uncommon power. The leaders who change our hearts and change our world have this in common. They have been willing to personally risk the consequences of infuriating the mighty by showing them their true images. And those acts of courage give voice to the inchoate grievances, frustration, anger, and hope of those who have sought justice and have been denied it, who have demanded their political birthrights but have been beaten down, who have called for protecting our environment against unconstrained greed allied with unlimited power, always under attack and sometimes at the cost of their lives. By giving individual voice to the passionate beliefs of quiet multitudes, these leaders, including not only those well known to history, but far more who have lived and died unrecorded by historians, but marked well and remembered always by those they inspired. They have literally, and often before our very eyes, repeatedly brought down mighty tyrannies. By their courage, they bring hope to all of us, but by their sacrifices, they also continue to challenge the rest of the world to stand with them. We are now in a time when that courage is called for more than it ever has been. Today, the world is gathering in the South African city of Durban. On the same trip where Robert F. Kennedy made his Ripples of Hope speech, he and Ethel traveled up the coast to Durban. In that city right now, the issues that must be addressed in order to save the climatic balance on which life depends on this planet are being addressed, but not well. There are many who know what needs to be done, but those with the power to act are not yet acting. In the spirit that we have heard from this stage, defined as speak truth to power, I think it's important to note that our nation, which should be the beacon of hope and the champion of progress and justice, is one of those nations standing as an obstacle to progress in Durban today. It's not comfortable to say that, but it is the truth. In his speech, in the Ripples of Hope speech, of course he made several speeches on that trip at Cape Town, Witwatersrand, Durban, and elsewhere, but in the Ripples of Hope speech, Robert F. Kennedy spoke about the 4 dangers that confront any individuals who try to bring needed change. One of the dangers is timidity, and he decried those who are not willing to brave the disapproval of their fellows, the censure of their colleagues, the wrath of their society. He went on to say that moral courage is a rarer commodity than bravery in battle or great intelligence, yet it is the one essential vital quality for those who seek to change the world, which yields most painfully to change. Another of the dangers, the 4 dangers, was comfort, which tempts us not to move, not to act, not to rock the boat. A third is expediency, feeling that it is simply easier to go along and get along. But the one he singled out first of all was the danger of futility. The danger that those who know what needs to be done, when confronting the obstacles and the opposition, surrender to the feeling that one person cannot make a difference and then give up. Martin Luther King Jr., in addressing a feeling of futility during the darkest hours of the civil rights movement, when people ask, how long is this going to take? It seems like it will never change. He said, how long? Not long. Because no lie can live forever. The essential obstacle to action to solve the climate crisis is the promulgation and acceptance of a lie. The lie is that it is perfectly all right to put 90 million tons of heat-trapping global warming pollution into the thin shell of atmosphere surrounding our planet every 24 hours, and to dump it there on a continuous and ever-growing basis as if that atmosphere is an open sewer. It is not an open sewer. These heat-trapping gases, it turns out, comply with the laws of physics. They trap heat. The temperature is rising. The oceans are evaporating more moisture into the air, and the warmer air is holding more of it, and thus the entire water cycle of the earth is being disrupted. And so we have once-in-a-thousand-year floods in city after city in countries all over this world. 20 million people displaced from their homes in Pakistan, further destabilizing a nuclear-armed country. An area in Australia the size of France and Germany combined flooded out. My home city of Nashville, Tennessee, a year ago May. Thousands of my neighbors lost their homes and businesses and had no flood insurance because it had never flooded in the areas flooded. A once-in-a-thousand-year rainfall there as well. In Vermont, when Tropical Storm Irene brushed by this city, briefly raising fears that the entire subway system would have to be shut down and the tunnels closed, and luckily that did not happen, did an estimated $12 billion of damages. And the governor of Vermont said, we didn't used to have the climate of Central America. We used to have the climate of Vermont. The same heat that is causing this disruption in the downpours of both rain and snow is parching the soil and sucking the moisture from the land. In Texas, the worst one-year drought in the history of our nation, worse than the Dust Bowl by far. Out of 254 counties in Texas, 252 of them have been on fire this year. I don't want to single out the governor of that state. It is a target-rich environment. But along with too many others, he said, this is a conspiracy by the scientific community to make up the science in order to earn more research grants. A lie. It is a lie. In the same way that the tobacco companies hired actors and dressed them up as doctors and gave them scripts to read into the camera, reassuring people that there actually was no medical consensus, and 100 million people died in the last century from cigarettes. This time it is potentially far worse. Russia, the worst drought and fires in the history of that nation in the 500 years of recorded records. And then they pulled all of their wheat and other grains off the markets, as did Ukraine and Kazakhstan, and world food prices hit an all-time high for the second time in 3 years. And poor people all over the world suffered more because they spend half and more of their income on food, and the food prices are still historically high. And the projections are that global warming will cause this to continue. Do we care? Do we care? How long? Not long. We have an opportunity to act. We are told by every National Academy of Science of every nation in the entire world that has one that the consensus is correct. And these academies have jointly called on the governmental leaders of the world to act urgently. Every professional scientific society in every field related to earth science or climate studies is unanimous in supporting the consensus and urging action. 97 to 98% of all the climate scientists who are most actively publishing agree with the consensus. If, God forbid, you had chest pains that got continually worse, and you were able to consult with the 100 leading heart specialists in the entire world, and 98 of them said, oh my God, you've got to take this medicine and change your diet and exercise more. But you happen to find 2 of the 100 said, I'm not sure, we need to know a little bit more. What would you do? That is the question that is facing us today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one final thought. 81 years ago, a great Irish poet wrote the famous words, "The best lack all conviction and the worst are full of passionate intensity." That insight characterizes our times as well. Our United States government, of which we are so proud and which we love so much, has fallen on hard times. In computer terms, our democracy has been hacked. It is no longer operating to protect and serve the public interest. I say this because it is essential to protect the ecological integrity of the earth during our time, when the opportunity to do so is present now. It is necessary for the United States of America to take action. And yet, in all too many cases, we now have, and I choose these words in a considered fashion, a government of, by, and for the special interests that provide the massive campaign and lobbying money that lubricates its operations and spins its revolving doors and controls its policies and decisions. We, the people, have an opportunity to change that. But each of us as individuals and as citizens must be willing to follow the example of Robert F. Kennedy and speak truth to power.